is Richard Hayzler, proud principal of Pequannock Valley School, a grade 6 through 8 school in Pompton Plains, New Jersey, as part of the Pequannock Township School District. And welcome to this week's episode of Learning Sparks, where we learn and grow together, talking about instructional strategies that enhance student learning in your classrooms. As I've been on Twitter recently, I've been seeing a lot about student agency and the impact that it has on student learning. But the phrase student agency can have a variety of different meanings or interpretations. And so I thought today on Learning Sparks we could spend a little time talking about the impact of student agency on student learning and on classroom instruction. Because when you think about student agency, you're talking about building the critical thinking and problem-solving skills students will need to thrive in their classrooms. When students are actively involved in their education, they build a deeper understanding about their content that they're learning. So it really becomes more about voice and choice and giving students an opportunity to follow their passions within the classroom. Part of our role as educators is to help students access and use the information they need in ways that are meaningful to them. So we need to make sure that we're raising awareness and letting them know what is possible for them to pursue. Very often in traditional education, students will walk into a classroom and the teacher is giving the information. We want to become facilitators of their learning. We want to help students develop and hone those self-directed learning skills that they're going to need to be successful long beyond our classrooms. And so as teachers, we need to become facilitators and coaches in their learning. We need to seek opportunities to connect students' passions with what we feel as teachers and administrators are important. We know that curriculum matters and that there's a mandated curriculum, but we want to make sure that we can connect a student's learning path with the necessary concepts within that curriculum and then give them opportunities to pursue other things outside of the curriculum. So how do we build student agency in our classroom? Well, I think it starts with building a culture and building relationships with students where they feel that they can pursue their passions. Building relationships with students and creating a classroom culture where learning happens all the time and that students feel free to take risks and expand their learning is critically important. Second reason on how to build student agency is provide authentic experiences. We need to make learning relevant. Dennis Sheeran in his book Instant Relevance talks about how you can utilize and create lessons to bring relevance to learning. But I think it's also important to show students the work that really matters. And so if we can provide authentic experiences in the classroom by creating simulations, bringing in guest speakers, doing things where students are applying the content that we're teaching to real-world opportunities, you're going to see students become very active. As a business teacher, this was an easy thing for me to do. So one of the things I would have students do when I taught accounting was I had students develop a company, and then they had to create balance sheets and reconciliation statements and give presentations as if they were presenting their company to someone. So when students took ownership and created their company, they felt like they could do anything. And here they were applying the skills that they were learning in their accounting classes to really create their own business. And it was an exciting thing to see. I think also it's important when you're building agency to provide differentiation. Because students have different passions, we want them to be able to explore it in different ways. So that means giving them opportunities to showcase that talent in different ways. Maybe it's through blogging or vlogging or creating videos or going out into the community to do community service. Differentiating those learning opportunities for students to show off their passions, critically important. Another way to build student agency, as a teacher, you can't be afraid to give up control of your classroom. And I know that can be tough. Teacher as a facilitator and students walking in and being open-minded to what they're going to learn on that particular day, it can be tough because as teachers and administrators, we're used to having a plan. And sometimes you may need to deviate from that plan. So the last piece of building student agency is really about taking risks. Because when you're turning ownership over to the students to follow their passions, you are taking a risk. And so you have to make sure that you have those relationships and that culture in your classroom that we talked about in step 1. You have to make sure that that's there. And you'll watch student agency take over. What hinders student agency? I think being inflexible. You know, if you're not giving students opportunities to follow their passions, then you're not taking the opportunity to see what students are truly capable of. And I understand that there's curriculum that we have to cover, but you can designate time within your classroom to see if students can connect their learning to real-world experiences. Because having that inability to step outside your comfort zone, you need to model for the kids what it's like to take a risk, because you never know what can happen. You want to see learning soar. And so in the next episode of Learning Sparks, we'll talk about Genius Hour and the 20% rule and 20% time and how that can impact student learning, because that's what student agency is really all about. Can you designate 20% of your instruction or your class time to have students follow their passion? Because student agency can be a really awesome thing to spark learning in your classrooms. So try it and see how it goes, and I look forward to learning and growing with you. You can follow me on Twitter @RichHayzler, and thanks again for joining us on this week's episode of Learning Sparks. Always do what's best for kids. Have a great day, everybody.